Now, the last thing I want to do here before we dive into working on the curriculum, which is another big part in this course, is to implement the functionality for updating the status of the course. That is publishing or unpublishing the course, okay? And here we've already created an action that allows us to update the course status. And we call that update course status action run, and that will basically take the course that we want to update. And if that is completed, we want to do return course resource make and a fresh version of the course, so that the new version will include the new status that we just updated. So let's go over to the course information here, and we are receiving the course as input, and all we have to do here is just to do a course update, and we set published at. Again, that is how we know that a course has been published, and published at. Now this is a toggle that we want to do here. So if the course is already published, then this update should unpublish it, and if it's not published, this update should publish it. So here we're just going to say course is published, which is a method that we defined in our course controller or in our course model to check for whether the course is published or not. Basically, this is what we're looking for. So we want to check to see if the course is published, and if it is, then we want to set the value to null. It means we want to unpublish it. Otherwise, we want to set the value to the current timestamp as the published date of the course. So again, we are just updating the publish at field to check to see if the course is published. If it is, then we unpublish it by setting that value to null. If it is not published, then we enter the current timestamp as the time when the course is published, and that should do it. I just noticed here that we have an uppercase O in the course action class name here. So I'm going to change that both in the class definition and the file itself. So let's just see. Rename that, and I'm going to call that update course with a lowercase o. All right, so let's go back here and see what it looks like. At this point, we are not checking to see whether or not the course is ready to be published, because sometimes we want to enforce some rules so that if a course doesn't have lectures, for instance, or it doesn't have cover images, then we don't want that course to be published. Even if the instructor clicks on publish, we just want to bail and say, no, this course is not ready to be published yet because it lacks a cover image and it lacks the lectures and sections and all of that stuff. So here I want to have a new method in my model, in the course model, to check for certain things or certain fields or parameters on whether or not that course is ready to be published. So in my course model, I'm just going to define a function. So public function, and I'll call it can be published. For now, let's just make it simple and only check to be sure that it has a cover image. So I'm just going to say this get first media. So I'm checking to see if there is a get first media, then return true. So it means that it has a cover image, otherwise we just return false. When we start adding sections and lectures, we'll expand on this function to also check that a course has at least 1 or 2 lectures before it can be published. But for now, let's just keep it simple. Back in the controller, then we can call that method to actually check if the course is ready to be published. So here I'm just going to say abort unless, so we abort the whole operation unless the course can be published. So if it can be published, then we proceed. Otherwise, we abort with a 401 error and a message that just says course not ready for status change. So the user should not be able to publish or unpublish or do anything to this course unless it is ready to be published. Okay. So over in Postman, we can quickly test that by going to the course status. So toggle course status. We need to provide an ID for the course. So let's just go to the database again and pull out one of the courses. Let's start with a course that doesn't have a cover image. So let's just go with this course number 4. And if our logic is correct, it should bail out and return an error saying the course is not ready to be published. So let's try and send that request. And we do see it here saying course not ready for status change, which is exactly what we asked it to return to us. But if we go back and we get a course that we uploaded an image for, like this one, we put it here, we can send that request, and we still get the same error that the course is not ready, which means we made a mistake somewhere in our check. Can be published, that's fine. In the get first media, we need to provide what the collection is. Otherwise, it will be looking for the default collection. But we are saving our cover images in a collection called cover, so we need to provide the collection for it to look inside. So let's go back and try and run this again. And it does change the status of the course. Published, it says false. If we run that again, published, it says true. So we are able to toggle the status on and off by sending that request. So our check here is working just fine, and we will be expanding on this check when we start creating lessons in the courses.